What's going on, guys? It's NYPrepper here. Just wanted to talk to you guys today about a major overlooked SHTF threat. And I think I'm going to make these videos ongoing. I have another ongoing series that I do, overlooked preps and overlooked bug out bag items. So I think my next series is going to be overlooked SHTF threats. All right, because I feel that there's a lot of different threats out there that a lot of preppers don't really prep for and don't include in their plans. And so today is March 4th, 2021. It's the beginning of spring here in upstate New York. Very early beginning to spring. As you can see, this pond over here is still frozen solid. We still have a lot of snow on the ground. So today temperatures are in the 30s, but it's supposed to drop the next couple of days and get really cold. There's actually beavers and snapping turtles in this pond over here. There's a pretty big beaver that lives in this pond, and a lot of snapping turtles here too. So what's the overlooked threat that I want to talk about in this video? It's going to be wildfires and just fires in general. I think after SHTF, there's going to be a lot of fires, not just like house fires, but wildfires, you know, brush fires, forest fires. I think that's going to be a major problem after any kind of long-term collapse of society. You know, when I say long-term, I'm talking about beyond a couple of months. You know, let's say, for example, an EMP event, a nuclear war, you know, a economic collapse, you know, those types of things, long-term situations. Okay, I think that wildfires are going to be a major problem. And why is that? Why are wildfires going to be a major problem? Well, when society collapses, you're not going to have firefighters going and putting out fires like they do now. So, you know, somebody's, let's say, shed could catch on fire, or somebody's house catches on fire, right? And normally you would have firefighters dispatched to put that fire out. But if you're 6 months into an EMP, there's not going to be any firefighters coming, okay? And so all those little fires that would normally be put out by firefighters are going to blaze out of control, and they're going to catch the forests on fire. They're going to spread into, you know, nearby forested landscapes and brushy areas. So I think what's going to end up happening is that, you know, you're going to have a lot of inexperienced people trying to survive, and they're going to try to, let's say, use their barbecues to cook food, or they're going to try to build fires and do different kind of things to keep warm and cook food. And a lot of these people are not experienced, and they don't know what they're doing, and they're going to end up, you know, causing their house to catch on fire, or their cabin, or even their bug out location. Okay. And what's going to happen is you're not going to have any local firefighters to come and put that fire out. And then what's going to happen is it's going to spread to the local forest. The forest is going to catch on fire, and then that's going to spread and affect other people, okay, in the surrounding area. So you need to be prepared for that, okay? And not just accidental fires, you know, as the source, but I believe that you're also going to have arsonists and different types of people that are going to set fire to forests and brushy areas on purpose to try to flush homeowners out of their homes, so that way they can go and pillage what's inside and take what's inside. So I think that's another potential too, is on one side you have the accidental aspect where the fire could be started accidentally by, let's say, a homeowner or a careless person, you know, or it could even be started by somebody bugging out. You know, somebody could be bugging out and they build a little fire, and, you know, they don't put the fire out, and that goes out of control and spreads around the area. And imagine if you have millions of people bugging out, you know, millions of people bugging out, and everybody's starting campfires in the woods to boil water and cook food. The chances of one of those little campfires of turning into a big fire is tremendous, you know, because you have so many people starting fires to cook and keep warm. Okay, so you know, the chances of accidental wildfires are high. And again, there's also the malicious wildfires, like I said, with the marauders, you know, and the raiders, and you know, anybody that has bad intentions. You know, I believe that what they're going to do is they're going to set fires on purpose, wildfires, to flush people out. Okay, if let's say you have a mountain community, it could be a gated community. It could be very heavily defended by the people who live there. You know, let's say you have a place where you have like 50 homes, like a subdivision, and it's in a rural forested location, and it's very well defended. Let's say you have half of the people in that development are gun owners, and you know, they form a security patrol and they patrol the perimeter of the development. A band of marauders could come through, and rather than trying to face the security patrols of that neighborhood head on, they could set fire to the forest around the development. And by doing that, number one, it would flush out all the people in that development. It would flush them out. And once the people are flushed out, they could come in and pillage, or at the very least, it'll weaken the defensive capability of that subdivision, you know, of that development or that neighborhood. All right, because now they can't focus as much on their security patrol, and they're forced to deal with this wildfire that's engulfing their neighborhood. All right, so that takes, you know, the security patrols are going to be not as effective, and resources of the neighborhood are going to have to be devoted to putting out the fire, evacuating people, etc. And that leaves an opening for the marauders to come in and do what they want. Okay, so you know, wildfires are a big threat in my opinion. You know, you're not going to have police, you're not going to have firemen, okay, firefighters, local firefighters. You're also not going to have any state and federal firefighters to put out large-scale wildfires, okay, like the ones we saw out west in recent years. Okay, so I believe that after SHTF, that I think wildfires are going to be all over the country, and they're going to be, I honestly believe that they're going to be much more widespread after SHTF than they are now, you know, because as things stand now, if we have a wildfire, people get evacuated, the wildfire's contained somewhat. Another thing too is you also have the Forest Service, the U.S. Forest Service, which maintains a lot of fire breaks around different national forests across the country. And, you know, those fire breaks are just literally roads or clear cuts in forested areas that prevent the spread of wildfires. Okay, so what the Forest Service will do is, let's say you have a huge area of forest, they'll come in and they'll cut, you know, clearings, kind of like power line clearings. You know, they're basically kind of like roads, and they clear these areas out. So this way, if a wildfire does happen, it doesn't spread as easily because of those clearings. You know, the clearings provide a barrier for the fire it prevents the fire from spreading. Okay, kind of like this pond here. If you look at this pond, if there was a fire on the other side of that pond over there, this pond functions as a fire break because the fire can't cross over the pond and come to this side of where I am. So the Forest Service manages these huge areas of forest, especially across the western United States, but also in the eastern United States. They manage millions and millions of forested acres, and they have these fire breaks that they have to continually mow and cut and prevent those fire breaks from growing, because if those fire breaks start to grow back into forest, then it's not a fire break anymore. Okay, so they have to go in there with tractors and chainsaws and maintain those fire breaks, much like a power line. Okay, when you have a power line, you have a power company that comes every single year or every other year, and they have to mow the power line right of way. They have to keep all the vegetation cut. And the same thing with the fire breaks. Okay, the Forest Service has to come in and cut those fire breaks and maintain them. All right, and so if society collapses, if there's an EMP or World War III or a cyber attack, or whatever your scenario is, if you have any kind of long-term collapse of society, you're not going to have Forest Service personnel going around and maintaining these fire breaks like they do now. And so what's going to happen is these fire breaks are going to regrow into forest, and if there is a wildfire, it's going to spread like crazy. It's going to be worse than anything we've seen even in recent years. Okay, because just think about how bad the wildfires were in the last couple of years in California and in the western states, how bad those wildfires were. And that was with a full support from the Forest Service and the federal government and local and state officials working to try to prevent the fire from spreading. Okay, so those fires were that bad, and that was with the full resources of local, state, and federal government being devoted to quell the fires. All right, so imagine how bad those fires would be if you had no Forest Service, no federal government, no state and local officials battling the fire and trying to keep it from spreading out of control. Okay, the wildfires are going to be much, much worse and much more common after SHTF. All right, because like I said, you're going to have more people trying to start fires to keep warm and cook, and a lot of especially inexperienced people are going to be trying to survive, and that's going to cause accidental fires. In addition to that, you're also going to have marauders that are going to purposely set fire to forests and brushy areas to try to force people in the nearby vicinity to be flushed out. And then you're also going to have a diminished presence of federal, state, and local resources to quell forest fires. Okay, so it's a very serious threat, and I don't think a lot of preppers really think about it. Okay, because most of us are always thinking about patrolling our property and making sure that marauders don't sneak onto our land and get into our house and surround us, or we're thinking about storing food and stuff like that. But what do you guys have in your preps to protect you and your family from a wildfire, okay, or some type of a wildland fire that sweeps through your area where your bug-in location is or where your bug-out location is? Okay, let's say you live in a city or you live in a suburb, right? So you're not really too worried about wildfires there. But let's say your bug-out location is in a rural area, and what kind of preventative measures have you taken to protect, or protective measures have you taken to protect your bug out location from wildfires? Okay, what have you done? And if you're building a house in a rural area or you're buying a house in a rural area, you should consider the possibility of wildfires as a threat when you're buying your house and when you're building a house, and same thing with a bug out location. Okay, because you should look at historical data and see how many wildfires are in the particular area where you're buying the home or where you're going to be building your bug out location. And generally speaking, the western United States is the worst for wildfires just because it's much drier out there. Over here in the east, we do get wildfires here occasionally, but because it rains and we get more rain here or snow, the fires usually don't last as long and they don't turn into these huge infernos. But even here in the east we get wildfires, and you can even just look back at history. The entire eastern United States, especially the Appalachian Mountains, you know, in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, and even going back as far back as the Great Depression, they put up fire towers all across the East, you know. Even in my area here, there's at least a handful of fire towers that were put up on hilltops and mountaintops, and forest service personnel, they're usually state personnel, would hang out in those fire towers, and they would watch the surrounding area for any signs of a fire starting. And then if the fire was starting, they would go to that location and try to put it out before it gets big. And there's a lot of those fire towers that are now used as tourist attractions and hiking destinations, where you can hike to the fire tower, you can go up to the top, and you have a nice view of the surrounding woods. And there's a lot of those around here. So, you know, look at historical data to see how many wildfires are in the vicinity. But also you want to think about protection, and how can you protect your bug out location or your primary residence from wildfires after SHTF. Number one, you want to definitely have plenty of fire extinguishers on hand. Okay, you want to have at least a dozen fire extinguishers, if not more, in my opinion. Okay, you want to have a lot of fire extinguishers. Fortunately, fire extinguishers are pretty cheap, and they're not expensive to stockpile. All right, so that's a really good thing. Okay, so you can easily stockpile fire extinguishers, but obviously if you're dealing with a wildfire, you're not going to really do much good with a fire extinguisher. So, you know, in that situation, you want to look at maybe putting up some kind of fire resistant siding on your home or your bug out location, or maybe a metal roof, or even going as far as having your home be made of bricks. Okay, bricks are much more resistant to fire than traditional stick frame lumber. Okay, in my opinion, a brick house with a metal roof is the best type of house to have, not just for SHTF, but you know, just regular living. A brick house will hold heat better, and it's not as porous when it comes to insulation, which is good for SHTF. A log home is a good one too. You know, but a traditional stick frame house is very susceptible to wildfires. Okay, and so you want to think about, you know, some type of fire resistant siding and fire resistant roofing. Okay, so if there is a wildfire, it's not going to just catch your house on fire as quickly, and maybe you can go out there and try to fight the fire a little bit to diminish some of the heat coming towards your house, you know. But another thing too that you can do that's, you know, much more simpler than that, and, you know, because putting fire resistant siding and roofing is a big job, most people are not going to do that. But again, if you're buying a new house or building one, or you're building a bug out location, you know, that's the time to look into that. Okay, look into different fire resistant materials for your exterior, and bricks are great, metal roofs are great. But a simple thing that you can do right now, besides the fire extinguishers, is cut back all the brush around your house. Okay, if you have any plants or brush, you should not have any flammable materials within at least 100 feet around your house or your bug out location. So trim back any brush, and make sure that the forest doesn't come up right to your bug out location. You know, I know that a lot of people, they think that if they build a cabin or a bug out location, they want it to be like in the middle of the forest with no clearing around it, you know, so it's blended into the forest, and that's fine. But if a wildfire were to come through, it's going to burn down your whole bug out location. Okay, now if it's a very small bug out location and you can absorb that loss and you don't have too much stored over there, that's okay. But, you know, if you're actually building a, you know, very complicated retreat, you want to make sure that you cut back the forest at least 100 feet from your house. Okay, 100 to 200 feet minimum. Okay, if you're in a area with a lot of wildfires, you may want to push that out to 200 or 300 feet and have as much open area around your bug out location as possible. So if the fire does come through, it's not just gonna come right up to your house, okay? So cut back the forest and cut back any flammable vegetation around your home, around your bug out location. So if the wildfires come through, they don't catch anything on fire, and you have enough of a space between the forest and your home, all right? And also fire extinguishers are very useful. So that's pretty much it for this video, guys. And again, you know, the fire extinguishers you can use if, let's say, you're in a security situation where you have marauders that are throwing Molotov cocktails at your home or your surrounding area. You know, those fire extinguishers are going to be very, very important. You know, if you're dealing with a group of marauders and they have your house surrounded and they're trying to firebomb your house with Molotov cocktails, those fire extinguishers are going to be very, very handy. Okay, so that's why I always say to you guys, have a lot of fire extinguishers. Have them in every room in your house or in your bug out location, because you never know when you're going to need it. Okay, whether it's marauders or even just an accidental fire. Okay, so that's pretty much it for this video, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know if you want me to do more videos on overlooked SHTF threats. I have a couple other ideas in mind, so let me know if you enjoyed this. And as always, take care, God bless, and don't forget the 3 Ps: prepare, practice, and persevere.